I used to believe a plane seat was just a chair in the sky. One number, one letter, nothing more. That was before one quiet night at a crowded airport taught me how fragile dignity can be, and how expensive it becomes when someone decides you don't deserve it. It started with a voice behind me, calm, confident, dripping with certainty. "Ma'am, economy boarding is down the hall. You're blocking first class." I remember smiling, not because it was funny, but because I'd heard some version of that sentence my entire life. Different cities, different men. Same assumption. I turned around slowly and said, "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." He laughed. Actually laughed. Like I'd told a joke he didn't approve of. We were at Redwood International Airport, late evening, storm delays stacking up tension already thick in the terminal. I was wearing sneakers, dark jeans, a hoodie pulled halfway up because I hadn't slept properly in 2 days. To him, that was all the evidence he needed. He looked me up and down, then said louder, so other people could hear, "First class isn't for everyone. No shame in knowing your place." Knowing. That sentence landed harder than he realized. Because I did know my place. I had paid for it, earned it, built my entire life around fighting to stand in rooms where people assumed I was lost. I pulled out my phone and showed him my boarding pass. "Seat 2F. First class." He barely glanced. "Those are easy to fake," he said, waving toward the desk. "Gate agent, we've got a problem." And just like that, the room shifted. Conversations quieted. Heads turned. Phones hovered just a little higher. The gate agent took my phone and ID and examined them like she expected something to unravel if she stared long enough. Everything checked out. Everything. Still, she hesitated. Still, she frowned. She said, "Would you mind stepping aside for a moment?" I said, "I do mind." Calm, polite, firm. That's when his confidence grew teeth. He introduced himself loud enough for half the gate to hear. Long-time elite member, frequent flyer, important schedule. He kept saying we like the airline and him were partners. I was just a complication. They suggested moving me to premium economy. Framed it like generosity. Extra legroom. Voucher. Apology smile. I asked a simple question. Why? No one answered. Eventually boarding started. Guess who went first? Guess who walked down the jet bridge feeling every old memory crawl back to the surface? Boardrooms where I was mistaken for an assistant. Conferences where men explained my own work to me. Moments where swallowing it felt easier than pushing back. When I stepped into the cabin, I saw him already settled in my seat. Champagne poured. Laptop open. Comfortable. The flight attendant checked again. Confirmed it. Then looked at me and said the words, "I'll never forget." He's already seated. "It might be easier if you adjust." "Easier for who?" I said, "That's my seat." He didn't even look up. "Relax. There's plenty of room back there." The captain came out. Seasoned. Calm. Authority without malice. He checked documents. Mine were valid. His were wrong. But then came the pivot. In the interest of keeping us on schedule. He didn't finish the sentence, but I knew how it ended. Me moving. Him staying. That's when something inside me hardened. Not anger, not ego, just clarity. I realized this wasn't about a seat. It was about how easily people decide who deserves inconvenience and who deserves comfort. I stepped into the aisle and said quietly, "I'm not moving." The man finally stood up, towered a little, smirked. "You really want to do this?" I said. "I already am." What he didn't know, what no one there knew, was that my phone had already buzzed. A single message from my operations director. Systems standing by. One decision away. You see, I didn't build my company to feel powerful. I built it to make systems safer, fairer, more reliable. But power doesn't disappear just because you don't flaunt it. And that night I realized dignity sometimes requires leverage. While the argument escalated, something else started happening. People were recording. One woman whispered commentary to her phone. Another man started live streaming. And then, quietly at first, news alerts started popping up. Flights delayed. Routes holding. Nationwide. The captain's radio crackled. His face changed. He stepped back into the cockpit, then returned looking pale. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a system-wide issue. We're going to need to pause boarding. The man in my seat scoffed. Figures. Incompetence. I looked at him and said, actually redundancy. Someone a few rows back said my company's name out loud. Slowly. Carefully. Like it might explode. Heads turned. Phones searched. Eyes widened. The captain looked at me again. Really looked this time. Are you? Yes, I said. I am. The silence was thick. The man's face drained of color. You could have just said who you were, he muttered. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's the point. I shouldn't have to. He moved. No speech, no protest, just gathered his things and slid into his assigned seat. I sat down. 2F. The seat I paid for. The seat that apparently cost the industry millions of dollars. The systems came back online minutes later. Flights resumed. But nothing really went back to normal. By morning, the videos were everywhere. The story wasn't about a shutdown, it was about a pattern. About how many people had been asked to shrink so others could stay comfortable. I didn't speak much publicly after that. I didn't need to. The footage spoke, the comments spoke, the consequences spoke. Here's what still sits with me, though. If I didn't have that power, I would have been moved. Quietly. Politely. Forgotten. And that truth bothers me more than anything that man said. So let me ask you something. If you were there, would you have spoken up? Would you have recorded? Would you have moved to keep the peace? Or would you have stayed standing in that aisle, knowing the cost of being right? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue with me if you want. Share a story if you've lived it. Because the real question isn't who won that night. It's how many people lose every day without anyone noticing. If this story made you uncomfortable, good. If it made you angry, even better. Hit, like if you believe dignity isn't something you earn by appearances. Subscribe if you think these conversations matter. And next time you're told you don't belong somewhere you paid for, remember this. Sometimes the smallest seat holds the biggest line you'll ever draw. What would you have done?